Good evening. I figured I'd do something a little different tonight. And I've been talking a lot with Mellow and PA 2, actually, Mellow and PA 2. Her name is Stacy, about the Amish because I live in an area where there are quite a few Amish. And when I've always had an interest in the Amish, I went to the Kutztown University of Pennsylvania back in the 80s, and they had quite a few Amish people there too. They would drive through campus for the shortcut, and we got to see them. And I always remember we'd be out there in our halter tops and our short shorts, and I would see the girls in the back of the buggies with all the clothes on, wondering how on earth are they standing the heat, but I would assume that they got used to it. And one time I went downtown. We used to walk downtown quite often, and there was an open buggy down there, and there was an older man, probably in his 40s or so, standing outside with the horse and the open buggy. And I've always been kind of a bold person, and I walked up to him and I said, "So what brings you to town today?" And he said, "De women." And of course, my 18-year-old mind went to, oh, the Amish guy wants to come to town and check out the girls. And then I'm like, oh, he meant the women needed a ride into town so that they could shop at the grocery store. But it took a minute for it to sink in with my worldly mind. But I was at Walmart a few years ago. I would say, what year was that? Probably early 2000s. And I ran across this book called The Betrayal by Beverly Lewis. And right away, of course, you see the Amish girl on the front. And I grabbed it up, but it was the second of a trilogy of Abraham's Daughters, it's called. And but I took it because the first one wasn't there, and I read through it. And then, of course, I read it kind of backwards, where I went and got the first one called The Sacrifice, which is the first part of the trilogy, and then the third, which is The Covenant. And Beverly Lewis is the person who did the writing. She has Amish Mennonite background, family, and she's a teacher, and she lives out in Colorado with her family now, but she was the first person that I started to read. And these are fiction, of course. And a lot of what's interesting about that brings the interest to the Amish trilogies or the Amish books is that the trouble begins with the Rumspringas. That's when they're in their youth, usually about 13 to 19, where they go out and they decide whether they're going to be Amish or whether they're going to join the church or not, and they experiment with the world. Well, they're out there, they're teenagers, and they're experimenting with the world, and things happen. There are illegitimate children that show up, people end up drug addicted, but as long as they don't join the church before they do these things, they won't be shunned. And that's where some of the problems happen, where sometimes they'll join the church and then, something will happen and then they get shunned and different things like that. But these books helped me. I'll go into another group of books that she wrote about a young girl who was shunned. But they helped me to understand what people go through sometimes, because I had been involved in Pentecostal Christian churches, and there were some things that went on after I was involved with the church, and there are a lot of groups that split up. People leave churches. That's why there's so many denominations, because somebody sees it this way and somebody sees it that way, and somebody wants to focus on sin, and somebody wants to focus on love, and somebody wants to focus on evangelism, and somebody wants to focus on sacraments, and different things like that. And you get all these different groups. And reading about how this young girl dealt with her shunning and came out on the other side, which is a different group, it's not this book, any of these books, but that really, really helped me, and helped me to see how to come out on the other side and still maintain your faith, despite the disappointments of people, because people will always disappoint you. But these are really good. I really recommend these for anybody who's interested in learning more about the Amish. Beverly Lewis. You'll usually you can find them at Walmart. You can find them in Christian bookstores. You can find them on the internet. They have their own websites. Of course, you can get them at Amazon.com. But the books have different fronts now. They now actually hire people and they dress them in the attire, and they take pictures. Actually, I liked this artwork better, but who am I? I'm not out there selling the books, am I? Not yet, anyway. But anyway, I just thought I'd share some of that, and if anybody's interested in going out and finding more while being entertained with fiction, Beverly Lewis. Abraham's daughters, or is it Abram? Abram's daughters. Abram and Abraham are two different names, but Abram's daughters series. Okay? And that would be it for now. Have a good evening. How do they say good evening? Good night. I think that's right. Ciao, baby.